Welcome. You're listening to Ask the Doulas, a podcast where we talk to experts from all over the country about topics related to pregnancy, birth, postpartum, and early parenting. Let's chat.
Hello. This is Kristin Revere with Ask the Doulas, and I am thrilled to chat with Stephanie King today. Stephanie is a mom to 3 boys and 2 girls, all born very differently. She's a professional childbirth educator, a doula, the host of the Pregnancy and Birth Made Easy podcast, and creator of the online course, My Essential Birth. She is passionate about empowering women through knowledge to trust in their bodies and the process of birth. And our topic today, all about finding an excellent provider. Welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you so much for having me.
I feel the same way. Being a podcast host and then guesting on podcasts is like, am I running this or someone else?
100%.
Yes, but this is such an important conversation. I love having a fellow doula and childbirth educator to address some of this because it is a concern. And oftentimes when our clients are hiring us or taking our classes, they've already selected their provider.
Yeah, they totally have. And that can be a little tricky for moms and for doulas. And it's kind of it's a gentle thing that you want to navigate, but it's also really important that we have people in our space that we trust so that we can get those things in order in a way that's going to really protect our space and serve us well.
Exactly. Yes. And obviously there are many choices in providers. Some family practice physicians have hospital privileges, for example, and then OBs and nurse midwives work in certain hospitals or attend births at home or birth centers. And then there are professional certified midwives. So lots of options.
Yeah, definitely a lot of options.
And then it's certainly your health would be a factor in your choices and where you want to deliver. But if you have yet to choose a provider, what are your tips, Stephanie?
Well, whether or not you've chosen a provider, I think the tips kind of remain the same. Really, what I tell moms to do, one of the best things I can tell you to do is to kind of just take a breath, lean back, close your eyes, and see in your mind's eye, what does your birth really look like for you? Like if you could walk yourself through the most comfortable, relaxing, safe space that you could for birth, what would that look like to you? And I tell them to use all of your senses. What does it look like around you? What are you smelling? Who's in your space? How are they treating you? Are you able to express yourself well? All of that kind of stuff. And part of that too is as you're walking yourself through that, for example, if I say, where are you when your contractions begin? And then what do you do? So maybe you visualize, okay, I know birth starts in the evening a lot of the times. We just happen to be up late watching TV and it's my husband and I, and we're in bed and I just feel this first contraction. So what do you do? And for some moms, it's going to look different. For some moms, it's going to be, oh, I know I'm going to start with a bath. Like I'm going to get out of bed and I'm going to do stuff. For some moms, it's going to be, I'm going to lay and rest and relax and start working through the contractions. And for some, it's going to, I'm going to try and sleep and see as much rest as I can get. Whatever the case, when you start that birth, wherever that space is, and you're progressing and you're watching yourself do that kind of just quietly in like a meditative state, oftentimes it's a gradual thing that happens in a safe space and you're not rushing off to the hospital or to your birth center. That's not normally the first thing that you're doing. The first thing that people see themselves doing is relaxing into it. They see their birth partner with them. They're using different tools. They're walking around or breathing through it. They find themselves relaxing and kind of allowing that birth to take its time and allow it the space and time to do that. And if that's the birth that you're looking for example, and you're looking for, and when you're thinking about this, you're like, yeah, and I don't get to the hospital till later. If you're planning on a hospital birth, right? I don't get to the hospital till later because I really want to take my time and relax, kind of work into things and be in my zone before I head there. Well, then you want to make sure that you're aligned with somebody that is going to be supportive of everything along the way. And it's the same thing. Okay, when you get to your birth space, what does that look like? A lot of women are not picturing, let's get you undressed and get you hooked up to the monitors and get that IV. And that's not what they're
Right.
envisioning when they're planning their wonderful birth and working with their body to get their baby earthside. However, those are the very common things that happen in that space. You have to be prepared that when you walk into the hospital, they're going to hit you with a bunch of questions. There's going to be bright lights. You're going to have to sit and triage for a little bit. They're going to hook you up to monitors. They're going to want to do a vaginal exam. They're going to want you to change your clothes. There's a whole list of things that make it a little less comfortable for moms and a little bit easier or required for them to do all their policies and whatever else happens along the way. If you knowing that ahead of time, have somebody on your team that can say, you're aware of the things that are happening, but this person on your team, this provider is actually going to fight for you to have the most comfortable measures or things that make you happy along the way, whatever that might be, then you're going to be in a better headspace to be able to focus on the birth instead of trying to think about all the things that are happening around you while also trying to allow your cervix to open and your baby to descend and, all the other things that are happening in labor land that have nothing to do with the processes and policies on the outside of your body that other people are dealing with. So that is where I tell them to start. Kind of picture your birth from beginning to end. What does it look like for you? Now, how do we get that feeling and that situation to actually take form? And the way that you do that is with a really solid provider. And that provider should be somebody that when you bring up questions to them about things like, if you are going to a hospital and you really don't want an IV, I'm just talking about my own birth, for example. I didn't want an IV and I didn't want any clothes. That was very comfortable to me to have those my own things. If you bring that up to your provider and the first thing is like, well, we'll see, that kind of thing, it's just like, are we going to be fighting about everything all along the way? And some of those things, if they hit all the other marks, for example, like they're like, yeah, we don't talk to you about induction at all. We're not going to schedule one at 39 weeks just because you're coming up to your due date. If there's other things that hit that are more important and you're only having to fight for the things, the IV and the clothes, if it is important to you, is very important. But they're lower on the list. Like for me, that was lower on the list. Okay, yes, let's make sure that the induction stuff doesn't happen, for example. Then you can weigh those things. But ideally, you want somebody that is going to be on your side from the beginning and helping you to have all of those things that make you feel safe and comfortable. And the truth is, when it comes to providers and what they are telling you is safe for your baby, is safe for your body, is the right thing to do, so much of that is their personal recommendations based off of their own experience and how they like to practice. But it doesn't mean that you are doing anything particularly wrong when you have somebody say, if you don't induce by this date, then you could cause harm to your body and your baby. And I say that because if you go to another provider next door and you have the same body and the same pregnancy stuff right in front of them, they'll say, no, you're fine. Yeah, you're good to go. It is so, that's what moms are up against. And it's why providers are so important. Because if you have one where you don't have to worry about those things, where you can just feel safe and comfortable in your own skin and in making your own decisions for your body and your baby, then you can focus on your birth and all of that. You don't have to be fighting the system the whole time. And that is why it is so important to find the right provider.
And again, we are consumers. So asking those questions early on, so you don't need to scramble at 39 weeks and switch providers.
Yeah. Oh, it's so important. If you can get it right early, it's going to be so much easier. Yes, you can fire your provider at any time, even during your labor. No, you don't want to have to be worrying about that. Get it right before then, so you don't have the stress.
Exactly. And trying to get records moved over. And I did all of that, but I did switch providers with my first pregnancy early. And it was a lot of work. I was moving hospitals and ended up making a lot of the calls myself to speed it up. But I could tell early on that my OB was very used to managing labor, and my vision for an unmedicated birth did not match her vision.
Yeah. And that's a big problem. Yeah. Then you have to fight the whole time and it's just not worth that.
Exactly. So I switched to a nurse midwife group and had longer prenatal visits, could ask the questions, and the OBs in the practice were supportive of my vision as well. So it was worth the hassle of all of the paperwork and phone calls.
Yeah, I feel like every mom feels that way 100%. When you are with a provider where you're like, oh, I'm just not sure, go interview a couple others then, because you will know very quickly that either, yes, actually, that is the right provider, my mistake, or that really wasn't, and this person could serve me so much better. In fact, one of the things that I tell moms to do, whether or not you plan to birth out of a hospital at all, is just for fun, go interview an out of hospital midwife. You do not
Yes.
have to hire them. You do not have to birth with them, but go listen to somebody, ask somebody questions from a place of, we believe birth is safe and natural and normal, rather than, here's all the things that we have to do to make sure that things don't go astray, which is not true, because birth is safe and natural and normal. And we know that because we're born with uteruses, and everything that we are, like, our entire body is created in order to create life and to birth life. We see it done safely at all times. Go talk to somebody that sees it that way, and it will give you a whole new outlook on how you can perceive your body, and how it just is such a different feel from having to feel like you have to protect all of that at all times, instead of being in an environment where you can let go and be vulnerable. And birth is the most vulnerable thing I think we can do in all of the ways. The people that you have in your birth space, you're really trusting them to take care of you spiritually and physically and emotionally in a time in your life where there's just everything's on the table. You are physically naked, you are emotionally naked, you are spiritually naked. And you need to have those people in place. When we talk about, like, doulas, for example, and we talk about holding space, make a huge difference. And it is so much more than just what is happening to your body, the physical things that are happening to your body. It is how you feel about how you were treated and helped and preserved during that birth time. So yeah, who you put in your space is vital. And we learn that the hard way sometimes, right? Especially first time moms. And we have well-meaning people in our lives that want to be a part of our birth space, maybe even family or friends. And we allow them in because we don't want to feel bad about excluding them. And then we're like, whoops, that was the wrong decision, right? So
Right.
sometimes
Those
it can be so
conversations
great, but
can be hard, but they're so
yeah.
important to have. And in pregnancy,
Yes.
rather than the start of labor. And I've had family members show up in the waiting room that were not invited. And so I
Oh,
help clients navigate their wishes for having this private moment versus inviting friends. And I've had some clients that it is more like a party and they want cousins and friends and as
yeah.
many guests as possible in there, but that also tends to take longer because you're not able to focus on doing the work of labor when you
Right.
have so many visitors.
Yes, that's very true.
Hey, Alyssa here. I'm just popping in to tell you about our course called Becoming. Becoming a Mother is your guide to a confident pregnancy and birth, all in a convenient 6-week online program. From birth plans to sleep training and everything in between, you'll gain the confidence and skills you need for a smooth transition to motherhood. Live coaching calls with me and Kristin, tons of expert videos including chiropractic care, pelvic floor physical therapy, mental health experts, breastfeeding, and so much more. You'll also get a private Facebook community with other mothers going through this at the same time as you to offer support and encouragement when you need it most. If you'd like to learn more about the course, you can email us at info@goldcoastdoulas.com or check it out at thebecomingcourse.com. We would love to see you there. We also have a book called Supported, Your Guide to Birth and Baby, which makes a beautiful companion to this course. It's a great book for any expecting mother and is the perfect baby shower gift. You can find information on that book at supportedbook.com.
So circling back to the provider, I love your focus on talking to home birth midwives and interviewing different practices to see what the best fit for you is, similar to the way you would hire a doula. But I'm also curious about other questions. If our listeners have already hired their provider, but they want to make sure as it gets closer to their due date that they're on the same page, what questions in that short amount of time we have for those visits are the most important to ask, Stephanie?
I think that really depends on you and what your goals are for your birth. It'll also depend on if you've previously had babies and you have some things that you liked or didn't like before and you have questions about that. For example, my first was a cesarean. So my next one, I had a lot of questions about VBAC, things that I didn't like that happened in my first one. Like, for example, I wanted to be in my own clothes. I wanted to be able to eat during labor, those kinds of things that stand out to you. Some of it's going to come from experience, and then some of it'll just be things that are important to you. A lot of that is going to come from knowing yourself as well. So one of the things that we talk about with moms is understanding your love languages. For example, I like to bring it back to the basics of just that. What things help you feel safe and comfortable, right? Or I think the love languages, right? Words of affirmation or physical touch or whatever, however you feel spoken to and loved, we kind of want to hit on those things first because it's going to be different. One provider might be perfect for somebody and really not perfect for another. And that's why even when we're asking around for recommendations and stuff for providers, because you're like, no, my friend used this provider and all of her sisters used him and they all loved him. And that's great, but it might be their personality and their preferences or how they birth. And so it's okay that you don't like that provider or, you have a different opinion. So keep that in mind. It's nothing that you're doing or not doing. You're going to click with some people and you're not going to click with others. And it's the same when you're looking for a doula. You can have a doula that has been to 1,000 births and they've got all the certifications and they do all kinds of extra stuff and they're wonderful. And they might not be the right doula for you. You might go with the one that's attended 3 births and she doesn't have any certifications. And there's just something about her that tells you that she is meant to be in your birth space. So you have to listen to that. I think one of the things that we can really think about is how do you feel when you meet with your provider? You are so intuitive, even if you don't believe you are. I hand raised over here. Did not believe I was intuitive at all. Looking back, 100%, I am. Every single person has it. So when you're meeting with that provider, is there something in you that's telling you, even just that little feeling of, or I really didn't like the way they answered that question or the way that they dismissed what I was saying, right? And then if they work with other providers in their practice, have you met with all of them? Are you going to end up birthing with them possibly? Do you like them? Is there anybody that you really don't like? All of those kinds of things. Do you feel heard and respected? Do you feel rushed? Those kinds of things are really helpful to kind of like just pinpoint at the beginning there. But questions to ask, and that's where we kind of get into even some red flags. Maybe, for example, if you want to have an unmedicated birth and you don't want to have an epidural, you mention that to them. Excuse me, to kind of have this conversation, I have a couple of things I'd like to go over. And one of them is I'd really like to do this unmedicated. For myself, I'd feel more comfortable that way. I don't like needles. I don't like medication. I'd like to feel the sensations of birth. How do we feel about that? And if the provider is like, well, you can, but first time moms, they pretty much always get the epidural. So plan on that. Or we'll see how it goes. Or a lot of moms feel that way, but then they get going and birth is a little stronger than you might think. So we'll have you sign the consent form just in case. That way you don't have to worry about it in the moment. But if you want to try, that's fine. Those kinds of things are actually pretty dismissive. Now, for some moms hearing that, they might be like, okay, sure, sounds good, whatever. But as time goes on, there might be other things that and you start questioning, is this the right person for me? Probably the best place to start when you're looking for questions is your birth plan. And so if you haven't made a birth plan yet, I'd say go try and figure out how to do that. Go in the order that birth happens. So from the time you walk through the doors of the hospital, possibly even before, if you're like, what do I want to do if my water breaks and I haven't gone into labor yet? And then all the way through your labor and all the way into postpartum. And then you use that as a jumping off point. It's not something that you should throw in your provider's face and say, this is what I want. Hopefully that works out for us. But it is a place to say, here's some of the things that I've been thinking about. And I wanted to get your thoughts on XYZ. Sometimes providers really don't like when you say, I don't want an IV. They just don't like it. But other providers are like, yeah, that's fine. So again, preference. And it's your preference too. Maybe you feel safer with an IV. You feel more comfortable with that. And so does your provider. And so you're on the same page and that's great. But using that birth plan as an opportunity to speak with your provider and ask questions and then see how you feel about the responses that you're getting back and trust yourself. If you leave your provider's office and you are not totally happy with everything that just happened in there and feeling really energized and excited about your birth, if you leave there worried and concerned or wondering what he really meant or she really meant by what she said, or she mean to give me that look, or she really didn't spend a lot of time with me on that, even though I thought it was important. If those are the kinds of conversations you're having in your head, there's a reason that you're having them. I would just say is worth it. It is worth, just like you were talking about with your own experiences, it is worth the effort to reach out to other providers, to ask questions, to get second opinions, and to see how you feel. As I said before, it's either going to solidify the fact that you're with the right provider or it's going to tell you, yeah, I need to change something.
100%. I can't agree more. So any other final tips for our listeners who are navigating either selecting a provider or, questioning if their provider is the right fit for them?
Yes, just kind of some final things. I think if you can really, I don't want to say it's unfortunate because it's really our responsibility. I was going to say it's unfortunate that we have to educate ourselves. And some of that might be true. But as moms, it's actually such a benefit to us to have the opportunity to educate ourselves so that we can be in charge of our care. Because when it's all said and done, we're the ones that live with the outcome of what has happened. We're the ones that have to go back and feel the feelings and have the memories of what we've experienced. Doing the planning and preparation to make that as positive as possible gives us an opportunity to have some kind of control and part of that situation. I would say really try and get educated as much as you can on the process of birth and the things that might come up along the way. For example, I have a lot of moms, this is so common, where they're like, I feel good when I'm with the provider. I feel like they're the right one. I've asked a lot of questions, all of that stuff. And then they get to the end part of birth, 34 plus weeks.
Right.
All
Yes.
of a sudden, the provider starts bringing up some things. They felt like they were on the same page or whatever. And let's make sure that we get your induction schedule. That seems to be like the big popular one right now, right?
Yes.
Let's make
Yes.
sure to get your induction scheduled by 39 weeks, and they just kind of like another tick on the box as if it means nothing. And if you're a mom in that room, you're just, everything inside of you is crushing because you're like, wait, I thought we had this conversation. I thought I didn't have to worry about this. Is there something wrong? Why are we talking about induction? I would say have those kinds of questions ready early on. Talk to them about induction early on. I'm a healthy, low risk mom. It's my first time being pregnant. I know because I'm educated, the average length of gestation for somebody in my position is 41 weeks and 1 day. So, with that in mind, what are your thoughts on me passing that guest date that we have? Because I'm comfortable going to 42 weeks plus and listening to what they have to say back. So, that having those questions ready prior early on and having those conversations as early as possible is going to give you the best opportunity to have time to make any corrections that you need. But I think education is where it's at. And obviously why I'm so passionate about what I do and probably why you're so passionate about what you do, because when moms are empowered with that knowledge, then they can make really informed, good decisions from a place of knowledge. And so when they're having that conversation with providers or anyone else, then they don't have to be at the whim of, well, they sound smarter than I do because I actually don't know. They can be like, you're actually having a conversation about it instead.
So speaking of education, you have an online course, My Essential Birth. Fill us in about when to take that, what that includes, and so on.
Sure. Yeah. I have some moms, if you're like me, I like to get started. I mean, I actually took my birth course before I was pregnant. We were trying to get pregnant and I was like, I know exactly what I need this time. And that is what I'm going to do. But a lot of moms, I would say second trimester is like the perfect time to jump in. And then we always have moms who jump in very late at the end. They're like, oh, shoot, I meant to plan and I didn't. And what can I do? But ideally, you have a couple of months to go. It's an 8-week course. But we always say we can do it. We have a 4-week schedule. And if you need to pump things up, you can, of course, do it a little bit quicker. But giving yourself at least the 8 weeks, really good amount of time. And then when you finish it, you can go back. We say just kind of like stick an AirPod in, listen to it 20 minutes a day, just as like a review so that you can keep it all going. But the course itself covers everything from let's talk nutrition and exercise and how to get ourselves healthy and low risk, all the way through to labor and postpartum. Totally full course on all of that stuff. And then you get put into a Facebook group and you get to chat with me. We have people answering questions. And then there's tons of moms in there who have already been through it or who are going through it with you. And so that's really fun too. But just everything that you could need to prepare for pregnancy and birth.
Beautiful. And you have an amazing podcast. So tell us more about the type of guests that you feature and topics on pregnancy and birth made easy.
Yes. So the name kind of gives it away. Like anything that you could think of, pregnancy, birth, and actually postpartum as well. We have some postpartum topics in there now too. Is on there. Anything that you might be wondering about, you can probably type it in and something is going to pop up. We've gone over induction. We've gone over how to find a provider. We talk about nutrition for pregnancy. We talk about having doulas. You were a guest on our podcast, so that's going to be fun too.
Love it.
Yes. So we have all kinds of different guests that come on. We've had doctors and midwives and lactation consultants and physical therapists. And so there's tons and tons of information there as well. But obviously, if you were looking for everything in like perfect order and ease of use, then you would hit up the birth course at My Essential Birth.
Makes sense. And how else can our listeners connect with you, Stephanie?
Yes, I am active on Instagram, My Essential Birth. That's the same tag for any of the social media channels. You can also find me on Facebook and TikTok, which I'm not in love with ever, but I will be there if you need me to be. Email if you need us, hello@myessentialbirth.com. And then it's myessentialbirth.com. We've got a full birth course. We've got the postpartum class that we offer now. And we also have the podcast, obviously.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom. We'll have to have you back on again in the future, Stephanie.
Yes. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here today.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Ask the Doulas. For more information about Gold Coast Doulas, visit us on our website, goldcoastdoulas.com. We're also on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. If you like this podcast, please subscribe and give us a 5-star review. Thank you. Remember, these moments are golden.